There are some directors out there who are such household names that just seeing their name attached to a film will have you immediately on board, and Martin Scorsese is certainly in that category. It's been 4 years since his last film The Irishman was released on Netflix, and thankfully his latest film, Killers of the Flower Moon, has been given a full theatrical release. The film has been distributed by Paramount Pictures and Apple TV+, and it will eventually end up on Apple's streaming service for you to watch from the comfort of your own home. However, after watching the film, I am grateful I had the opportunity to see it in all its glory on the big screen and get immersed into this incredible true story. Killers of the Flower Moon is based on a non-fiction book of the same name by David Grann, and the film was originally going to have the FBI as the focus of the story, with Leonardo DiCaprio as the agent Tom White. However, after DiCaprio's suggestion to Scorsese to amend this and instead focus more on the Osage story, DiCaprio's role was changed to play Ernest Burkhart, with the reliable Jesse Plemons taking the role of the agent. As stated by DiCaprio, with this direction they could get to the heart of the story easier and also better involve the Osage Nation in the development of the film. So a basic summary of the story: during the 1920s in Oklahoma, members of the Osage Native American tribe are murdered after oil is found on their land. Following World War I, Ernest Burkhart, who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, arrives at his uncle's ranch, and while there, him and his uncle William King Hale, played by Robert De Niro, scheme for Ernest to marry into an Osage family, so they can eventually murder them all and take their wealth. Very Game of Thrones style. Ernest is not the sharpest tool in the shed, and DiCaprio plays him well as someone who can be easily manipulated by his uncle. He marries a character named Molly, who's played by Lily Gladstone, and it is captivating viewing as we watch this toxic relationship marinate. Lily Gladstone is getting deserved praise for her performance as Molly, and she, like a few others I talked about this year, says so much with her eyes, and Scorsese himself in interviews has pointed out this talent.
There's something about her face and her eyes that you could see you feel what's going on intellectually and emotionally, and she hardly has to show much.
Robert De Niro is the best he's been in many a year, with a superb performance where he gives Chancellor Palpatine a run for his money as an evil snake in the grass. Throughout the film, he acts as a friendly benefactor to the Osage people. However, considering what happens in the film, I thought we would have seen more questions raised over his character considering the pieces of evidence in front of them, and it begs the question, why are you all so over-trusting? Surely some doubt should start to come into play. Killers of the Flower Moon is a very dense film, and it's one of those where it takes some time to process it all. Without doubt, every review you see will discuss its near 3.5 hour runtime, and you do feel it, but there's not any specific area of the film where you think, yeah, this whole section doesn't need to be here. Instead, it's Scorsese indulging himself on a consistent basis. Now, I was happy to roll in the mud with him for this film, however I can see many mainstream audience members finding this tiresome and in disagreement that the long runtime is warranted. As this is going to be released on streaming eventually, many may opt to wait and watch at home and even split up the film into more digestible chunks. Scorsese believes, however, that cinema deserves more respect as people binge TV shows for 5 hours, so why can't people watch a long film? I do understand where he's coming from, though I think it's a mentality thing here where with an episode of TV, you get a start, middle and end, and another and another. So for, say, 3 1-hour episodes, it's like getting a starter, main and dessert 3 times over. However, with a film, it is just that one meal and you've got to wait longer for it to arrive, and it includes a greater commitment and risk. I would love more people to want to commit to these films, but in a world where instant gratification is at an all-time high, you can understand why this might be difficult. It's also worth mentioning, you get to take breaks when you watch a long film at home, and I believe that once we go over the 3-hour mark in the cinema, an interval/intermission should very much be considered, and I think the cinemas wouldn't mind that as well, with the extra food and drink sales. Anyway, moving away from that tangent and back onto the film at hand, Killers of the Flower Moon tells a somber and tragic story that sheds light on the destructive force of greed and the disregard for human life. With that in mind, I believe we could have delved more profoundly into the experiences of the Osage people, and specifically, I would have appreciated more exploration of Molly's perspective within the narrative. Once the FBI is introduced, it adds some much needed energy into the film at the right moment after such a long focus on the villain's not so watertight scheming. During these scenes, we find some of the best lines in the film, and the screenplay from Eric Roth and Scorsese, like the lead actors, will most likely get recognition when it comes to the award season. The brilliant score from Scorsese's longtime collaborator Robbie Robertson should also be on that list. He sadly passed away in August this year, and the film is dedicated to his memory. Recent Oscar winner Brendan Fraser is in the film, but only for a handful of scenes, as he explodes into the film in quite an over-the-top fashion, making sure to leave his stamp on proceedings.
Loud noises!
The film wraps up in a memorable fashion, and when the credits started to roll, I felt like I had seen a complete film that, although it may be very long, it was paced in a way where I thoroughly enjoyed my escapism in the cinema. I don't think the film is a masterpiece, and there are things that are glossed over, but it's a really solid entry from all involved, and one of my favourite films of 2023. With a budget of $200 million, it will need to do big business to be a commercial success, but for Apple, that won't be the be all and end all, as it will live on in the streaming world, and a high profile film like this will be a valuable asset. That being said, I'm sure this is going to be a film that will divide opinion, so where do you stand on Killers of the Flower Moon? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see another video on screen, is a review for The Exorcist Believer.